moment and the work that is yet to be done. The government have sort of given me the heads up they're formally going to approve the deal at the end of this week or the beginning of next week. There are a couple of little fights we had over wording, so it's delayed a couple of days, and they folded and ended up giving us what we wanted. It was on the weekend shift, you got to work 4 or more hours, or just 4 hours, so we've got no outcome there. I expect that to come end of this week, beginning of next week. There'll then be a week where you have the EBA in front of you, the whole document. We can go through it, we'll give our commentary on it. You can ask any questions, you actually have the document with all the changes to look through. And then there'll be a vote online over the course of a week that all workers have access to, not just union members. But that needs to get a 51% success rate to be successful. Doesn't need a certain number of people to vote. That being said, it's my strong view that we want this to be a big turnout of union engagement. We've got the big victory. We want to make sure that the not yet members know what we've done, how we've done it, and who is responsible for delivering the big pay increases and the other improvements that they are going to benefit from, because that helps us with our conversations with them as things move forwards. When that deal comes out, we'll have a whole list of positive changes that we have won outside of wages. We've talked about that quite a lot. We haven't talked as much about the smaller non-cost items, as the government calls them, but there are a number of significant ones. Last time I was here, we spoke about long service leave as single days. There'll be an increase to the number. You can take long service leave as single days moving forwards, which means they've actually got to calculate it so you can take it as single days. There'll also be improvements to how many days you can take without a doctor's note when you're taking sick leave as a single day absence. We've rewritten all the workflow protections in there, so now there are mandatory requirements for them to review, are there enough people to get this work done safely? If people aren't there on leave, what steps are we taking to backfill, reprioritise work, and a whole process they need to run through? And most importantly, there is a mechanism for workers to submit a review saying this workload is not safe, these are the reasons A, B, C, D, and I need a written response within 14 days outlining what we're going to do about it. And if that response isn't sufficient, it then is something we can move and take to the Fair Work Commission. Now that has more steps than I would like it to ideally, but we have no steps in the past. So now we do have a mechanism we can start to push. And as with everything else in the EBA, when you win a few fights, suddenly they're much more willing to come to the table and compromise. There are also improvements to some other forms of personal leave. You're now be able to take reproductive health leave, so people struggling with menopause, if you have periods endometriosis, you're now going to take leave for that throughout the EBA, and a bunch of other small things. So we'll come out with a comprehensive list so you can see those positive changes and make sure we're having those conversations in the workplace with those not yet members. I expect that to come out within the next week or so, assuming the government doesn't change their timetables at the last minute, but even so it'll be a couple of days and no longer than that. Separately to that and all the big campaign stuff, I want to talk a little bit about the work of the administration that's been going on, Charlie Donnelly. There's sort of two halves of the union work that we do. One half is out loud and proud with members, it's dealing with disciplinaries, it's running EBA campaigns, it's pushing change impact statements, and then the back end of actually building a strong organisation that has the money, the staff, the resources to pour into that front end work. It's no secret that when Charlie came in, the union was in a pretty broken state. To give you some idea of that, Diana left the union with a debt of about $3.8 million. In 12 months, whilst also running the biggest campaign that we've ever run, we've brought that down to under $1.4 million. So we've cut off 65% of that debt, and we're scheduled to be debt-free by the end of September, which is just a massive thing for building up the future of this organisation and making sure we're going up and up and up, not continuing to go down and down. Alongside that, Charlie has moved on 18 staff members who were associated with Diana and that former leadership group, people that didn't bother turning up to work after the administration started and went on indefinite leave. Not one person who has moved on throughout that Diana era has been paid a cent of union money after they moved on. They all brought expensive lawyers and made lots of big threats, and if you pay us a lump sum to go away, we'll leave you alone. We told them all, not in a million years. You want us to go to court, we'll quite happily defend your egregious behaviour in front of the members and run it the whole way. Not one of them has been successful in that. So we've made sure that all of that internal money, as we've been driving change, has been spent on member-facing activities. We've started to grow our organising team. So when we came in, there was only one organiser who had come off the shop floor, off the job. We've brought on 4 more organisers over the last 12 months. All of them have been off the hospitals on secondment, coming in with an experience actually working in the industry, and we're looking to hire a number of other ones, again trying to get as many people off the job as possible into the union, bring that passion, bring that experience. At the same time, we're growing our member support teams. When you call through on the phone, you can actually get through. It's been a big problem over the last year or so, actually reaching through. It's not because they're not working their asses off, it's because they've got a 5-person team and a team that should be a 15-person team. So we've identified 3 candidates that we're going to onboard in the next month to help with getting that call locked down, but that's just going to be the start of expanding. I see that as really the core of a lot of the good work that's done. Members need to be able to call through, not wait at all on the phone, and get a really high quality level of advice on big things and small things. And then separately from all of that, we're growing our industrial team, which is basically our in-house lawyers. It's no shock that working at a union doesn't pay you as well as working at a highly priced law firm does. So we're engaging with people, Monash, Melbourne, La Trobe, just out of law school when they still have their values and they're still really keen to go and make a contribution, and they've not done 4 years as an associate and are now earning 300 grand. We've identified a couple of people we've picked off. We got one of the top young lawyers out of Monash at the end of last year, and we want to build a crack team so that we can go and take cases to the Fair Work Commission, to the federal court, and pay a fifth of what the hospital is doing. They only need to go out and pay for lawyers on service and pay massive fees. We want to be able to run the same service in-house at a fraction of the price. So growing our organising team, growing our member support team, growing our industrial team, and making sure that the back end of our union is as strong as that front end has been. So that's what we've been doing. What needs to be done? We're going to be back at the bargaining table on July 1, 2027. It was a 2.5-year deal with 12.5% over that time. And part of the deal that we did was putting ourselves in a position to go again before people have forgotten what it is to get involved and fight. There's obviously a big challenge to get ourselves into a position to not just match what we did this time around, but go further, run a bigger campaign, be even more visible, get a better pay outcome, and get more people in our workplaces on board with that and on board with what we're doing. We've gone through all the sort of hospital staffing numbers, and we're sitting at the moment at about 17% of the workforce is part of the union. When we started the campaign, it was a little bit under 12. So we've had a big growth over that period. But for me, 25% should be our target going into the expiry of the next DBA. A quarter of the workforce involved, engaged with the union membership. That puts us in a very strong position. We're going to be holding a delegates conference probably at the beginning of June. We've just come back with some quotes for a venue to run that through, and we'll be asking for delegates from every public hospital to come along and start to put together their ideas for how we grow their worksite, what they need from the union, what they need from other members on the worksite, what resources they need to support them, and put together a comprehensive list to go, how do we go from 17% all the way up to 25%. So anybody here that's interested in getting involved in that, speak to Kelly or Lani. Anybody that doesn't want to come to the conference but has ideas, make sure you share them through and we'll put them on the discussion pile. I'm a big believer that there are no stupid ideas. There are only ideas that we can work through and see what might fit into the piece. We've taken a first step, and it's a big step to rebuilding some pride in our union and getting wages moving in the right direction. But it's been 25 years of wage stagnation. That's not fixed in one step. That's fixed with consistent action. Over and over again, always pushing for that little bit more than the government or the hospitals are willing to give. And over time, cumulatively, those little bits add up, and get us to significant outcome and significant membership.
And conditions.
Yeah.
It's big in my book, conditions. They're hard fought,
Yeah.
and they tend to get negotiated away by the last lot,
Yeah.
which was really unappreciated. Conditions like maybe 2 ADOs a month. That's not too much to ask. I was getting that back in the 80s and 90s, we got that. So just throwing things out. Conditions are very important.
You've got to have this deal with people who've been around a long time. It's always been a trade-off in the past.
Yeah.
Sell A, B, C, D
Yeah.
to move up, and it was a big part of the bargain this time. Don't go backwards.
Yeah.
Only move forward.
Gain conditions.
Yeah.
Finance is very important, but conditions are big too, because you get a bit more time you can spend with your family and your kids and that. That is priceless, honestly. And that's what I'd like to see, this work from home, right? I'd like to see it also for people that can't work from home, being able to spend a bit more time with their family, because it's the most important thing for society is healthy family and spending time with your family.
So you're a more productive worker when you have
Yeah.
a home life as
Yeah,
well.
it's something we can really
Contribution
get
all round.
behind. Yeah.
So that's my little update on what we're doing and what needs to be done. The deal I expect to come out within the next week or so for a vote. When or if that vote is voted successfully, that's when you'll be paid the $1,500 cash payment. We've asked that be paid in an out-of-cycle week, so not on the week you get your normal pay, but on the other one. The hospitals are currently doing a little checking in with their reference group to see if there'll be issues with that. I can't see why there'll be issues, but I'm sure they might come back with something. But we're going to push hard for that paid on an out-of-cycle week, so you don't have more tax taken out of that pay packet than you expect to. It'll then, if the vote is successful, go to the Fair Work Commission, where they'll read through it and make sure that it all aligns with industrial law and the underpinning award, and then they'll sign it off, and when that's signed off, the full back pay and the pay rates will come up. All this time waiting in between our agreement will be fully back paid as well. So the back pay we won last time, and then this waiting period, will all get back paid for all hours work, all allowances, the whole thing will be fully back paid. That's my spiel. I'm keen to throw it open to the room.
And the all workers vote, do we need to get, is it 50% of everyone who's covered by the EBA or just 50% of people who participate in the vote?
50% of people who participate in the vote.
Okay.
Yeah. Now look, I'd love to get 50% of everyone,
Yeah,
but we'll see if that happens.
Do we have to like roll
No.
up or
No,
just...
no. It's just 50% of people who vote. It'll be sent through to your email that you get pay slips, I think. That's what they're putting out a little timetable. It'll be sent through to that. There'll be a contact to go if you haven't received it, and there'll be an instruction booklet that I'm going to meet with the hospitals on this week to just agree some wording on.
And the Easter Saturday, Sunday, is that classified as a public holiday or not?
Yes, it is.
So us that haven't been paid those days, that's in the back pay?
Yes, so that should have been 250% on the Saturday, Sunday, and 200% on the Monday, Friday.
Have we got paid the Monday and Friday, but not the Saturday, Sunday?
So no, that shouldn't be back pay, that should be fixed now. So you chat with Lani afterwards. We've got a bunch of hospitals not paid through, but that should have been paid now, shouldn't have been waited. Yeah.
As for the gradings, a lot of my colleagues in theatre technicians sort of haven't signed up because the grading hasn't been sorted out.
Yeah.
When, before we vote, we actually get a format of how that grading is.
Yeah, you'll get the whole document through. We had a meeting last Friday with theatre technicians. I put an email around to discuss what changes need to happen in the gradings moving forwards. What are the things that are holding people moving from that 4 to 5? How do we progress our one technician per theatre claims? We've got a commitment from the government to model all across the state what it would take to actually staff one theatre per technician, and then what training would need to go into that to increase the number of workers. We had our first kick-off meeting with technicians last Friday. I gave a couple of the theatre tech managers some jobs to take back to their teams and get some information. When they've got that back, we're going to meet another meeting. I think the discussion mostly with Peter Davis over at Box Hill, a couple of people over at Monash, was they'd be keen for a couple of days off the job at some point in the next few months to actually sit down with theatre techs across the state and go, what do we need to do to better develop professional development in our roles and start to build something that moves forward into the long term. So
we've got quite a few senior technicians been here for multiple years and they're great for us.
grade 3s or grade 4s?
I'm a grade 3 and I'm 10 years this year in a couple of months.
Alright,
So
we'll have a conversation about it separately because last time around the block that was moved from 3 to 4 where you needed to do X number of competencies and a bunch of hospitals didn't offer the competencies. So I don't know why you guys would be stuck at grade 3. So like, let's have a conversation about that afterwards because everyone else at different
Because
hospitals
they
is
said
stuck at
that
grade 4.
the training wasn't formalised on written anywhere on paperwork. That's what HR said. So therefore, it could not be proven that we trained, and so they're like, you're a grade 3. And I had a union rep with me, Danny, whatever his name is.
And our roles have been by appointment.
Yeah, let's have a conversation about that because they're not doing that right. It's grade 4 at other hospitals where there's the problem they don't move from 4 to 5 because they've got to do X number of competencies.
So this hospital thinks that moving to grade 4 is appointment only, and if we've got EFT for it, so.
Yeah, but no, that's not something we need to wait for the EBA for, but something that Lighting Lake can push on now. Yeah?
You know, start declarar, 3 days we sign from nurse or doctor or pharmacist. We're not allowed to sign from where we work. We have to sign outside.
She's talking about the stat decks. We got an email about 3 weeks ago saying that stat decks can't be signed by the staff. Basically, the nurses sign stat decks in this hospital, but my manager has decided that that's not legit, so we can't use the staff in the hospital to sign our stat decks.
That's definitely not true. We've had a few issues with emails going out around leave. I think there was an email sent out saying you couldn't use stat decks anymore at one point, and we engaged on that. They can't prescribe what is a real
I think
stat
it's
deck.
a new hospital policy that was sent out that no staff member can do a stat deck now. You have to go to Justice of Peace, the chemist, all those sorts of
That's
things.
what they say.
It's a hospital-wide thing.
Yeah. Do you have a copy of that email, Kelly?
I will do, but I don't have it with me, but I can forward it to Lani.
Because that's
Yeah.
not accurate. The hospital doesn't get to determine what's a real statutory declaration.
Yeah.
The Commonwealth of Australia determines what the real statutory declaration is.
Yeah, and who's
That
legally.
might think their
Yeah.
authority is there, but it's
Yeah.
actually a little bit lower.
Yeah, I check on,
Yeah.
nothing is said.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Just some questions on the timeline. So, once it goes to a vote, how many days is that until the vote finishes?
So it'll be 7 days of what's called access period, where you've got the documents, and then either 5 or 7 days of online voting. The hospitals have asked what my opinion is on that, and to be honest, my opinion skews, let's get pay rises in people's pockets and let's not have this drag on any longer. Any thoughts on whether you prefer 5 or 7 days to vote online?
5?
I think if it's 5 clear, like if it's at 5 Monday to Fridays,
Yeah.
because that's when
Yeah.
people have access. The weekends is going to be, I think it doesn't. If they're taking away the 2 days, it's taking away a weekend. It doesn't really make that much of a difference.
Yeah, it was the weekend proposed. Yeah, all right, I'll go back to them and say 5 days then.
And
so it'll
then-
be 7 days for access, 5 days for the vote. Then it goes straight to the Fair Work Commission. I don't know how long the Fair Work Commission is going to take. It's not too complicated in terms of like these big legalistic changes. So my hope is that they get it done in 4 weeks. But I've got no control over the judges there, and they have a massive, massive workload. They will try and get it done as soon as possible. I'm hopeful it will get done in 4 weeks. Which should mean that all pay rise and back pay comes through in June, and if there is any extra tax taken, it can then be reclaimed on tax returns. And that's the timeline that the VHIA and I have been working towards.
I just found this book recently, and it says pay rise from 2017 every year is 3% pay rise, but mine hasn't been had any pay rise for at least 3 years. Is that right?
You definitely should have received a pay rise over the last 3 years. It's been about,
Not at all. I'm telling you.
yeah. Lani, do you want a conversation afterwards on that? Because you should have received a pay rise. Everybody should have received a pay rise every year in the last 4 years.
very, very bottom.
Yeah.
I'm HS3.
You're an interpreter?
I'm HS3.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's HS3 or is it AO3 here? Is it HS?
We're HS here.
Yeah.
HS.
HS3 definitely has received pay rises over the last few years, so if it's not been applied to, it's not been applied
Not since
correctly. But
lockdown.
yeah,
Payroll is useless in this building.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely catastrophically
Yeah.
useless.
I went to see the manager face to face. Say, this is what I get.
Yeah. Well, no, that's not correct. You definitely should have received a pay rise.
So, can I have a new book?
This is the 2016 to 2020.
Yeah, don't worry. We're going to be producing some EVAs that don't have that.
You can get it online. I'll help you later,
We
and
might
I'll
actually
get it
put some
online for you.
members
Yeah.
on the front instead of
That'd
these
be
like
nice.
weird corporate photos of Diana.
We'll get when the new one comes out, we can print out the new one for you.
Colourful?
Yeah, I'll print out.
I don't have authority
Can we,
to
can
print
I
colour paper.
print the
Yeah.
cover?
Why not?
Yeah, great, alright, I'll
That
make
looks
it a
good.
special marker.
We'll definitely get you one. Alright, any other questions, comments? Alright, so recapping, have a conversation with a text about 3 to 4, because I don't think that's being applied correctly. Kelly's going to find a copy of that email and send it through to me, and we'll put something out there because they don't get to define what a statutory declaration is. We're going to get you a printed copy of the EVA when it's done in
That's my
colour.
birthday
We're going to have a
present, the
conversation
best
about why you
birthday
haven't moved up, because HS3 should definitely have moved up over the last few years.
Yeah, just those little
Yeah.
yeah.
My
When
best
I have the
birthday.
date locked in for the government, I'm going to call this afternoon where hopefully they'll confirm it. We'll come out with those dates in stone. It might be tomorrow. I don't know whether I'll confirm it today. And then we'll also start to run through those detailed list of changes in there. Whether you vote yes or no, obviously I'm hoping you vote yes, but whatever you vote, definitely make sure to vote, because one of the best things for us dealing with the hospitals, with the government, with the media, is the level of engagement. Like, we had 6,000 people vote in our internal members vote to decide whether or not we do. That's just a crazy number of people voting, and it was such a good thing to go back to the government and say, look how much engagement we have, look how much fire we have to drive this forward. It's something we want to keep on building and keep on moving forward. So however you vote, make sure you vote, make sure you speak to your co-workers and you tell them that this is something that they need to engage in and have their say on.
Yeah, more members. Ask
Yeah.
your colleagues and that. Just remind them like how special the union is and how much we do gain from it. So if we can get some more members, yeah, and delegates as well. I'm always up for help if anyone wants to be a delegate.
All right.
Wonder, sorry, just about our stolen data. Is there any update in that? Because obviously we still
Yeah.
do.
So for those that don't know, one of the Diana Asmar employees in the week in between sort of a judge removing them, but before the administrator got the keys to the building, not real keys, but metaphorical keys to the building, they took a copy of the membership database. That was only name, contact details, not any sort of financial information. That's not able to be exported from the system. It's the only good thing about our membership database, that you can't take it, everything else is terrible about it, but that bit was really useful this time around. We filed a report with both the police and the Australian Signals Directorate. MailChimp, which is the company that they're sending out these emails through, is located in America, which means we can't get a warrant issued here for access. So we've submitted it to the Australian consulate in America. They're moving it forwards. They said, look, I'll be honest, the last one we did took 18 months. We'll keep moving it forwards. And at the end of that period, when we get it, we will then pursue them for civil penalties, but I don't expect that to happen in the next, couple of months. They're going to keep on sending the emails out. I'm relatively unconcerned about it. There'll be some people that obviously have genuine fear over this union over the years of poor behaviour, and that might touch a little bit on it, but most of the feedback I've gotten from members is, what load of rubbish this is, trying to tell us it was a bad outcome. We were there, we fought for it, we know it. The administration, Charlie's term is ending some point in July, and then there will be elections for this union. Very transparently, they're sending out emails in an attempt in the lead up to election to try and get some people to run on their little.
Do you know who's sending that? Because it's not signed. It's got no one's name.
Well, I do know who's
That's a
saying
bit
it,
piss weak.
But like not legally.
But I know it like 95%, and I don't want to
Well, I
be
ha-
done for defamation.
If you're gonna, do that, you have to sign it. Otherwise, it's bullshit. If you're not
Yeah.
going to sign something,
I think the
simple
last
as
thing they're
that.
complaining about faceless men.
It's just weak
whilst
as piss.
Being a faceless person sending.
Yeah, it's weak as piss.
They're just trying to scaremonger people, It's
Yeah.
so it's good that it seems like people recognise that and just
Yeah.
think it's nonsense. 'Cause
Yeah. Look,
I'm off.
I have a very strong suspicion about a specific former employee who is currently working for another union and has been going about town talking about how, it was always his destiny to return to the union and his unfinished business and he's going to do this and that. So, I have a pretty good idea as to who it is. But, if they want to do faceless, negative rubbish, whatever. I had a conversation with a regional organiser the other day who I'm going to bring on in Bendigo. They're coming up for the job as an FSA, and they were talking about one of the best things about the last 12 months has been how positive the campaign has been. It's been lots of people enjoying themselves, enjoying being in the union, smiling, wearing the pink, talking about where we can go and the positive future, not just being relentlessly negative. So they want to be relentlessly negative, let them. We've got a positive message about where we're going to go, what we're going to build. I expect one out today. The teachers have just secured a very good pay increase, 28%. I expect there's going to be one that comes out today going, why did the teachers get this but not us? Because they had 50,000 fucking people in the streets in the city and we had 3,000. And that was a very impressive 3,000.
it's
We've
all
never
about
brought out
numbers.
3 people before,
Yeah.
let alone 3,000. But there's no secret to the formula.
Yeah.
They brought out 20 times more people, they get a better outcome.
Yeah.
We want to do that, we need to be able to pull
And we've got the staff, we've got the
Yeah,
numbers, we just
definitely.
freaking won't member up, And it's not a life commitment, you just join up. If you leave, you cancel it or move on.
Yeah.
Ah.
And they both went to the teachers' rally with me, and they'll testify that we were sitting having a beer. I went, "Fuck, I'm jealous."
Yeah.
I'm good for them, I suppose. But God, next time around, we've got to get closer to this.
I was in HW back in the late 80s, 90s, and we got an extra day off a month. We had 1 day a month ADO. We got 2 days in our negotiations. We got 2 days a month. We didn't lose any wages. We didn't lose any conditions, right? And we got a day off, and it's just because we're powerful. We're
Simple.
all
More
members.
more power.
It was
better
awesome.
outcomes.
I mean, the teachers
Yeah.
have a slight edge as well because, my management here were more worried about the teachers' strike than when when our team went on strike because everyone was like, I have to work from home because my kids aren't going to school because there's no teachers. So there's a ripple effect that's really big. Whereas for us, it affects patients, and then there's negative press around that. And all this
Massively
kind of
so.
things as
And
well.